Today we'll do a brief overview of PyCharm and the PEP8 style guide. Style guides are important because they help you to provide clean, consistent, and easy to read code. If you're working in a team and someone is reading code written by different team members, you want them to be able to focus on the content of the code rather than on differences in formatting. And if you move from one company to another, you can count on having to learn a new style guide. For Python, the default style guide is called PEP8. You can find PEP8 online. The easiest thing to do is just search for PEP8. It should be the first result. And you should familiarize yourself with this standard. While we will be strictly adhering to PEP8 in this class, I want to draw your attention to this section called A Foolish Consistency is the Hobgoblin of Little Minds. And basically it says you should use PEP8 most of the time, but if PEP8 is getting in the way of the readability of your code, then you have permission to deviate. For me, this happens a lot of times when I have long lines that I need to break up. If I follow the PEP8 standard too strictly, I end up with code that's unreadable. Now, I've written some code here in PyCharm that's just full of PEP8 violations and some warnings as well. PyCharm is nice because it alerts you to your PEP8 violations real time as you code. It does that in this source code window on the right-hand side using these dashes. And if we hover over the dashes, we can see the specific violations. This one says, PEP8 expected 2 blank lines, found 1. I can click on that dash, and it brings me to the right violation. If I hover over the line of code, I see the violation again. PEP8 expected 2 blank lines, found 1. And what that means is there should always be 2 blank lines before a class definition. So I'm going to enter another blank line, and my violation goes away. Now we'll continue down fixing this code so you can see some of the more common violations. Usually we want spaces around operators like equal signs. One exception is with default values to parameters. Here we have a parameter journey length that has a default value of 7. In this case, I want to take out the spaces around the equal sign. Of course, in the next line, we have the opposite problem. It says PEP8 missing white space around operator, and that's because this is not a default value. This is an assignment inside the method, so we want to add the white space around the equal sign. Then we have a comment here, European swallow, and inline comments need a space after the hashtag to make them easier to read. They also need 2 spaces before the hashtag. And you can see as you go along, the errors are disappearing. Inside a class, we should have 1 blank line between each method, so we need to add a blank line before this method getVelocity. The next issue is actually not a PEP8 violation, it's a warning, and you can see the difference because it doesn't say PEP8. The PEP8 violations are prepended with PEP8. The warning is that we've created a new instance variable, velocityGotten, inside this method. Generally, instance variables are used in several places inside our code, so we'd like to initialize them inside the init method. So what we'll do is we'll just add self velocityGotten equals, and we could choose a default value. Probably false makes sense in this context, or you might choose none. Push enter, and then that warning goes away. Whenever we're comparing an object to a built-in type like none type, we don't use equal to or not equal to. We use is or is not. So we're going to replace not equal to with is not. If you've been coding in other languages, you might be in the habit of adding semicolons to the end of each line. Python will accept that, but it's not the standard, so we want to get rid of that semicolon. Again, we need a space between each method. We almost always want a single space after every comma. And then after the end of the last line, we should have a blank line. Sometimes it will automatically indent, so we'll just backspace. And let's go back and see what's left. This is an interesting comment. It says method convert to MPH may be static. So PyCharm noticed that we haven't actually used any instance variables inside this method. And it's letting us know that we probably should be coding this as a static method. So we'll add the decorator. Static method. Static methods don't take a self parameter. And that warning is cleared. Just 2 more issues here. First, we have our class definition with parentheses. Since we're not specifying any class to inherit from, we can get rid of the parentheses. And the final note is that we haven't used our parameter journey length anywhere in our code. So we should either remove journey length as a parameter, or perhaps add an assignment inside init. And now our code is clean, and we get a satisfying little green check mark up at the top.